I probably started a good 2 months before the prelims because I did a test every day. That is sometimes all I did when I had time, because that is very important that you do that test. But I wouldn't say there are people who start with it from day one, that they start studying as well as doing test series. I could not do that because I at least want to know that there is some body of knowledge and some reference points that I have, even if I'm trying to guess work. Right. So I did, for example, for the prelims about 2 months before, but then I did a test every day, maybe 1 or 2 days a break.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Chamomile Tea with Toppers, an initiative of Unacademy. I am Dipanshu Singh, your host for today. And though I would have loved to have this conversation physically over a cup of tea with my special guest today, but considering whatever is happening around during the times of COVID, I think this is for the best. So my guest today is a young lady from the coveted Indian Foreign Service, hailing from Delhi, and has done her graduation from SRCC, and then went on to do her master's in public administration from Columbia University, and was working while preparing for the civil services examination, and is a role model for a lot of youth in India. She has an impeccable and envious profile, and I'm talking about none other than Miss Pujya Priyadarshni, All India Rank 11 of the Civil Services Examination 2018. So let's connect with her over the phone. So hi Pujya, how are you? Welcome to the show. Lovely having you here. How are you feeling today?
Hi Dipanshu, thank you. Thank you for having me. Well as one can feel in the current situation. But yes, trying to make the best of it. It's been a good day and it's pleasant today in Delhi, so that's nice.
So Pujya, I'll not go to the cliche questions. Rather than, I know that you are in Delhi now and you have finished your training and the foundation course at LBSNAA. So just want our viewers, if you can take us through how was the experience at LBSNAA and how is the transition taking place at FSI in Delhi?
I think the foundation course is one of the most celebrated parts of the training, Dipanshu, and everyone who's preparing really does look forward to it. And having done it myself, I think I can say every bit of it and the entire euphoria attached to it is very much true. It is definitely one of those things that you will remember for the rest of your life. And I've had the double, what would I say, the chance, because I have had parents who have gone through it. So there was that nostalgia that I thought might not live up to the idea. And the other was my own excitement, thanks to the social media especially, that you see a lot of videos that come out, a lot of seniors you speak to who talk about the foundation course fondly. So both ways, it really lived up to it. And the transition, if you speak of from LBSNAA to FSI, is one where you, after the, if I may say, the fun frolic as well as meeting with people from other services, this is when it becomes, now this is what we had signed up for, now let's start talking real business. And that has been really interesting because every service has its own flavor, which really the academy can offer. And Delhi is home for me, so I really am enjoying being at FSI. And this has been, we are a much smaller batch, so that is the only thing I think once in the transition one did feel from 100, suddenly you come down to 30 people. So that probably first 2 weeks you feel, oh, there are very few people, but after that it's just been a fabulous journey all along.
Right, very good. So, like you have quite an impeccable and to say an envious profile. Like working professional and going and doing masters in public administration from Columbia University, one of the topmost universities in the world, and then joining one of the most coveted service, Indian Foreign Service. So take us through your journey. Like I understand that your parents are in the service, by the way. And so how did it all start? UPSC Civil Services examination. Like when did you think of it? What was the motivation behind it?
I think it's true for everyone who has working parents that somewhere that profession is always at the back of your mind, that yes, this is an option, ye option to hai hi karne ke liye. But for me, I would say that my desire to join the services was perhaps there while I was preparing, while I was in SRCC as well. But it really got crystallized that I want to come back, join the foreign service while I was at Columbia. And I think 2-3 things that really changed it was, one, the kind of education that I was pursuing in terms of public policy there. Specifically, I was doing international policy and international trade. So that was something I could see very closely associated with diplomacy, the entire multicultural environment that one was exposed to while being at Columbia. And the third thing I would say is I am someone who really likes the idea of getting to know new places, new cultures, and new people. So I would say that overall, the work content, the lifestyle, as well as what is what it offers as a service, were really got crystallized in the 2 years while I was at Columbia. And I came back in 16, and yes, was lucky enough to get through.
So as you mentioned about preparation for prelims, that is one common question again a lot of aspirants have, and I want to know it from you, is when to really start practicing test. Some of them, just they jump in the preparation and they're like, sir, we want to practice test series. When should we start, answer writing or maybe test series? So can you give us an idea, when is the right time to really start practicing MCQs or prelims, and then you can probably go for mains?
I probably started a good 2 months before the prelims because I did a test every day. That is sometimes all I did when I had time, because that is very important that you do that test. But I wouldn't say there are people who start with it from day one, that they start studying as well as doing test series. I could not do that because I at least want to know that there is some body of knowledge and some reference points that I have, even if I'm trying to guess work. Right. So I did, for example, for the prelims about 2 months before, but then I did a test every day, maybe 1 or 2 days a break. That was the idea for prelims. For mains, again, yes, once I gave the prelims, I calculated my own score and I felt that I'm in a zone that I might qualify. Then I started writing test series, and towards, again, to the run up to the mains, the last 1 month, I didn't necessarily do an entire practice paper, but I was doing 4 questions of sociology every day. I was doing some answer practice of ethics every day and of other subjects as well. So even if it was not 1 3-hour paper, which I tried to do, I was writing every day. So mains is really about writing, prelims about accuracy when you're guessing. So there are different asks of the 2 exams.
So Pujya, एक बहुत ही कॉमन क्वेश्चन है, आई थिंक फेवरेट क्वेश्चन है यूपीएससी एस्पिरेंट्स का. बुक्स बता दीजिए प्लीज, कौन कौन सी बुक्स आपने रेफर करी थी. बुक लिस्ट बहुत जरूरी है, उसके बिना कोई भी कॉन्वर्सेशन कंप्लीट नहीं होता रिगार्डिंग प्रिपरेशन. सो व्हिच बुक्स डिड यू रेफर? कैन यू प्लीज टेल अस फॉर प्रिपरेशन ऑफ प्रीलिम्स एंड देन विल गो टू मेंस.
I think अगर आप देखेंगे ना कि how different people have recommended that is a study in itself कि किसने क्या पढ़ा. पर अगर आप मुझसे पूछते हैं तो then I would say I think मैंने बहुत शब्द यूज करूंगी आगे भी, अभी भी किया होगा, paucity of time. So limiting my resources was very important for me. So for every subject, I really did stick to the NCERTs, and I think that really did work for me. While actually, honestly, in 16, I think I did go, ये भी पढ़ लूँ, वो भी पढ़ लूँ, किसी से कोई नाम सुन लिया इस किताब का, तो इसको भी देख लेते हैं. I realized in 18, this is not how it's going to work for me. Yeah. I had the NCERTs for primarily 11th and 12th. Right. And then I had, for example, you have political science, you have Lakshmikant. I think that's really the Bible, known by everyone. Yeah. And for sociology, I had made my own notes for my optional subject. Right. So for that, I would say that it is really some referencing, because sociology is a subject that's not really static. There is a lot of changes that take place. I mean, in our 18 attempt, we had questions on Me Too, we had questions on feminism, which are not necessarily the dated things that you can write. You have to know what impact it has, what news has an impact on, and what is happening in society, and how you can relate that to the theory. I think, in jahan NCERT, as I mentioned, for history, geography, and to some political science I mentioned. Economics is, because I have done economics in school, in undergrad and in master's, so I really didn't look at any textbook.
You were very comfortable with economy. I think that was not an area of concern for you. Economy. Yeah.
Economy was not. Again, disaster management and other topics, I would again say that I looked at more what is happening currently as opposed to at a later stage. There is limited theory, I think, theory that you have to do. Now given currently what's happening, I think disaster management is going to have a very different outlook altogether going forward as well. And lastly, ethics. Yes, ethics I did practice. I practiced a lot of ethics because I didn't refer to any book. I don't have a book that I can say, please look at this. Vocabulary is something I made my own notes on, because I thought that the first few questions when they begin, you should just know the definition so that that's out of your way and you can think more on the questions about the quotes and case studies. Right. Have a body of vocabulary, nicely done vocabulary list. and practice ethics closer to the exam. I did at least try to do 2 questions a day, just to be in the practice of writing that language. It's very different from all the other exams.
So now moving on to mains examination. Interestingly, I think I've asked the question previously on previous occasion as well to you. Coming from a Masters of Public Administration, generally public administration is one of the most sought after optional hota hai. और आज मेरे पास numerous queries आती हैं कि sir PubAd is a good optional or sociology is a good optional because I teach sociology. It has been a subject which is a subject which is very close to my heart. So what made you really go with sociology? Like this is something which I really wanted to know from you personally. Because वो भी एक बहुत अच्छा subject है, really good for civil services, has been the, you can say, the blue baby or the favorite subject for a lot of toppers as well. So ऐसा क्या सोचा आपने या क्या comparison था कि you should opt sociology rather than public administration?
I think this question now, actually, whether it was in an interview, mocks में तो हमेशा ही पूछा गया था. I've been asked this question multiple times, and yes, but I think I have to every time begin with the disclaimer. Let me tell you that there is a huge difference between the syllabus and the ask of the public administration paper for the UPSC and what it entails at Columbia. That is a very practitioners-oriented program. There is no theory. We're not. They don't teach us this is Weber's theory and this is all the what I would say, the content-heavy aspects that are expected here. Indian, I'm not even talking about Indian. I think there is a division even in the public administration paper. But as I mentioned, I did international economic and financial policy. When I come here and I look at the paper, for me, honestly, doing a PubAd subject or sociology would have been equally alien, so to speak, that I will have to pick up both from scratch. What I looked at when I decided for sociology were primarily 2 things. One was an interest that I genuinely wanted to study what have been, because I think it's very relevant. Sociology is something that's always going to be relevant wherever you go. And second was because I have studied in India, abroad, elsewhere, the Indian sociology bit, I really thought I should have a better understanding of than I felt I did at that point. So I thought it was a good way to initiate myself into it. And that has really helped me, I think. And I honestly thoroughly enjoyed my that was my only subject that I used to really look forward to, even because at the end of the day, if I did 4 questions, that is how I wanted to end my day. I genuinely enjoyed the subject. If you do that, then if it's PubAd, it's history, and through it doesn't.
I think that's beautifully summarized by you that जो option आपने choose किया, you should love that subject, because I think you're every day studying आप GS पढ़ रहे हो and you get bored of with the monotony आप जो रोज पढ़ रहे हो. I think optional choose करना एक बहुत important एक stage होता है preparation के लिए, and I think for you sociology did that, and you should have interest कि आप जब bored हो जाओ GS से तो आप वो at least वो subject उठा सको. And साथ में अपनी preparation हो जाएगी. So also the same question adding on to it. Sometimes this is one of the questions that a lot of aspirants again ask is कि जब हम optional choose करते हैं, how big a role should we consider when कि ये optional GS में help करेगा या ये optional GS में help नहीं करेगा या फिर trend ये है. For example कि जैसे anthropology आजकल बहुत scoring है या social ज़्यादा scoring है. So what should be the right approach in choosing options, especially because as you rightly mentioned, even though the syllabus of PubAd is totally different from what is taught at Columbia. Maybe it's just a minuscule of what the PubAd syllabus is over here. But like what exactly, as a topper, you should give an advice to a newbie or a beginner कि optional कैसे choose करें?
I think what I said, Dipanshu, before this as well, that interest is very important. But let me put a caveat there. Interest आपका हो सकता है. For example, I'm a humanities come commerce graduate. I might really be fascinated by the idea of physics, but taking that is not going to be smart. So you must also recognize what are your strengths and weaknesses. I realized I have a flair for language, and I knew I could use that much more in sociology and be more creative about it than probably even in public administration. So recognize what is it, if you have a flair for something, and that can be used. I mean, I looked at the paper even for commerce, because I am a BCom honors from SRCC, and that is a lot of my batchmates have taken that path. I realized that of course I can do it because I do have the skill set required for it. But as I said, at the end of the day, it really boiled down to that I also have a skill set that I can utilize in sociology, but I enjoy it a lot more. So why not take that? Okay. So yes, but don't be very adventurous that I really like the idea of physics or mathematics and I take it. At least know that it's not such a gamble you should take.
Right. So Pujya, take us through with your sociology preparation. I think the same basic books, if you can tell us the books you referred, or was there any special strategy for sociology?
Okay. Again, for sociology, I think one, of course, the most important is Harlem Boss, that everyone has to, you should go through a few chapters of it, whether it's on race, on ethnicity, things that we don't necessarily experience in India, but are important, because then that is a different perspective you get than from just taking down notes. So sometimes you should go to the text for especially things you're unfamiliar with completely, or might not have seen in your daily life.
Right.
Then I used to read a lot of articles that were in and around the area of sociology. I had done, of course, a coaching. So I had my notes from the coaching that really helped. I did a test series for sociology, but I somehow feel sociology is not something that can be taught through a textbook alone. It is either you find someone who you connect with as as an educator who can help you walk you through it, and it is a second element is how perceptive you are, and that's where I said that while in Columbia there is an element of understanding society, and whether it's multicultural or more homogeneous, that is something I was very conscious of. So I used to draw a lot of examples from my personal life in my answer, not necessarily something. You can't be taught sociology in that sense that a textbook is you do this. It's not commerce that it's A plus B, or 1 2 plus 2 is 4. वो नहीं होता है. So sociology is a different. That's why if you have interest, then take it up. Then you really enjoy it, and you'll find things everywhere. You'll find material wherever you go.
So interestingly, you said that you used to read a lot of articles regarding sociology. So did you ever refer to journals like EPW or any specific text? Because this is again a very common question. Again, I'm bombarded with these kind of questions every day. Sir, EPW padna hai, ye padna hai, wo padna hai. Like for example, in sociology, you have paper 1, which is mostly static. Like you have the thinker part, which is very, very important, and stratification, which is the most crucial part, I think. And then the second one, paper 2, is mostly dynamic. So can you give us a bit of information, or maybe guide us कि paper 1 पे कहाँ पे focus करना है, and paper 2 को कैसे simultaneously prepare करना है, application of paper 1 with current affairs?
You're right. The distinction that you made between paper 1 and paper 2, absolutely. I think paper 1, the 6 thinkers, you really have to master them. There is just no way around it. But I think somewhere in our heads, while we do it, we should try and see what contemporary examples or what we can do. Even though it's static, I think the question, at least now how they are designed, is not just please tell us what his Marx's theory on this is. That is not how the paper is structured. So they have to really understand and not mug it up from some notes that you have. And second is see the contemporary implications that it has, or how diversely you contemporize that theory. Right. So that can really help, and that can really be from your daily interaction, from what you read in the news. Everyone reads the newspaper for this exam. See how is it playing out today for you. Right. You're talking about stratification. If there's the migrant crisis that's in the news, see how there are going to be questions framed for sociology as well in this. It's not just a GS question. Similarly, for paper 2, yes, is a lot more about Indian society, which is something, as I mentioned, I took a lot of keen interest in. I did not, when I say I read a lot of articles, they're not necessarily as academic as an EPW, or I think a lot of questions are around Yojana, Kurukshetra, and all the other magazines. I did not have the time to read all of that. Correct. What I meant when I read an article is if someone shared it, or if it was on paper while I was in a metro, I was reading it. Right. That's how I read my articles. My newspaper reading was on a metro ride. So wherever I got time is when I read it. So seeking out articles was not how I did it. What came my way, but if I thought, this can be useful, is how I used it. Right. So, that really depends. Some people really thrive by going through material and wanting to draw so many examples. Ultimately, I didn't find that I could, in the answers that were to be written, so much references could also be given. It is the gist that you have to give. So if that you can wrap your head around, it's okay if you're not throwing names here and there.
So Pujya, I think we have talked enough about sociology. Now I want to know about other GS paper, like what was your strategy GS1 ke liye, GS2, GS3 and GS4, and how did you go about your mains preparation? And also then I'll later come on with the aspect of answer writing practice.
Again, I think if you ask me, we can try and break it down subject-wise if you really want. But for me, it has really been doing a lot of test papers. I mean, my entire main strategy was nothing but a long process of writing answers. So if, for example, you take the first paper where we had, for example, history, I already mentioned what were the references that I really used. What I never did a lot of thematic questions, which is something people do, thematic test series. I tried to do comprehensive because the juggling aspect is also something you must train your mind to, that you're doing a geography question and then there's a history or there's a political science. How do you jump through that? For my 1, 2, and 3, primarily it was some element of body of knowledge, but trying to draw more on through practice of answer writing. For example, what I did differently in the second attempt of writing the mains in 18 as opposed to 16 was really, one, I was writing the answers in 16, but I had not actually joined any place. So I had no second eye on my paper. So I used to read my own answers and try and assess them. So something I learned the second time around was that at least joining one place where someone was giving me constructive feedback really helped me to understand, okay, this is how an answer is to be structured. For me, it was more difficult also because I had come from a different education system right after my master's. So there is a different ask, which sometimes if you're not told, you might not understand. Right. Second is that I realized that a lot of emphasis is put, and probably rightly so, maybe just because I have qualified, I can say it is, no one really knows, that's how I see it at least, that your introduction and your conclusion are very important. Mm-hmm. This is something everyone has emphasized. So this is something I also picked up on. Mm-hmm. I consciously, especially for paper 3, tried to get as much data as I could, because whether it was in economics, whether it was in disaster management, whether it was an environment, because trying to get the attention that, okay, if you're talking about climate change, this is what I can tell you about GHG emissions, or this is what I can tell you about the challenge that the earth is facing right now. Right. Similarly, for political science, I also tried to remember, I had again a sheet for at least the articles that, even if that was not necessarily straight out of the question, I could frame my questions as that there was an article in the beginning that said, or some committees I was not very good with, honestly. So I really stuck to the constitution and to the articles. I got imaginative in my history answers. I took some poetic liberties and tried to say that, okay, maybe this is how I can open it sometimes. Taking it to a different, starting it at a different page and trying weaving it back. That is because history mein to dates bahut mushkil se yaad hote. So wo koshish bhi nahi ki. You have to again realize what is your strength, how much you can remember and how much you can really something like economics, if you do numbers, will help you throughout in all different parts of the paper as well, but even at an interview stage. So getting some hang of some basic numbers of the Indian economy and Indian society largely really does help. Ethics, if that's the fourth paper we discussed, I have already said that there is a vocabulary list, which I found really helpful. Right. Second in ethics was really practicing every day. I did not struggle so much with case studies because somehow at least that was something I actually devoted less time to, while they say that is, you should divide it such that you're working more with case studies. And the language and the ask is very different. From Then the other one is very cut to cut. This is the question being asked. These are the responses that are expected. This is, for example, you're given a quote. You can take it in any direction. It's not really wrong. It does not have a right answer according to it. So when there's no right answer, you need to put in a lot more thought. So I used to put a lot more thought in my first part than the second. So that's how I would say. But basic mantra, if you want to call it, has just been practice. Nothing.
So again, I mean, as you have said, like during the course of the answer, you mentioned that you had like some sheets that you had written down. So again, a very basic question, again, a cliche question, sorry for that, but how important is notes making? Or did you do note making specifically for optional GS? So एक question होता है कि क्या हमें NCERT के भी notes बनाने चाहिए, or should we make notes out of Lakshmikant, or should we make notes out of optional? Like, what was your take? Because I understand it's a totally different strategy. Everybody has their own. So what was yours?
Mine was always to save time. So that was my go-to thing was, what can I do so that I don't have to open this book again? Right. But I did not, for example, I read through the geography ki NCERT ki baat kariye, for example, 11th and 12th ki. Uska har panna I could palto in my head. Like, that's how much I had gone through that. But I did not have any notes for geography. I have nothing to show that these are my geography notes. I have nothing to show that these are my history notes. Because I had very solid textbooks to go to. Right. What I did do have was, for example, a list one pager of the for political science ki articles kya hai. Mm-hmm. So wo thi. For economics, again, it was not key. What is demand, what is supply, and what is an act. That was not what I was looking at. Monetary policy होती, fiscal policy होती. But अभी जो numbers हैं, उसको मैं काट के update भी करती थी. So that's all I did, was that numbers should be there. So my notes were really, this is one panna I should even probably look in the morning before I go for that exam, because these numbers should stay fresh in my mind. But where there were textbooks that I could go by, I did not have any notes. And so similarly for sociology, as I've already mentioned, paper one, you have, if you are wherever you take your notes from, there is a body of knowledge that you can refer to. Paper two, again, I had some statistics on India as to write an answer, whether it's on gender, whether it's on caste, that you can write about. So there again, wherever you think you can draw numbers, you'll need notes. So I had 1 pages. I don't have diaries or notebooks or folders of notes.
Right. So so I think that was to be my next question, because you were working while you were preparing. So I think it's very crucial that you strategize your preparation, because एक तो आप काम कर रहे हो, वैसे ही आपके पास time बहुत कम है compared to other aspirants who are preparing, who are full-time preparation जो लोग कर रहे हैं. So how did you manage your work life with preparation? That is a very important question and a very common question again. जो बहुत सारे aspirants, क्योंकि आजकल considering the uncertain scenario, a lot of people not willing to give up their job and start preparing, and then going into this uncharted territory or uncertain territory of UPSC exam. Fortunately, you had a very good support of family. So what made you how did you strategize your preparation with work?
I think you did a very important point, Dipanshu, that I was fortunate enough to have a family support system where it was not that if I was not working, there was a huge financial constraint, which can be true for many people. वो case नहीं था, पर हाँ, for me personally ये था कि I come from a services background. If I don't qualify this exam, I have no fallback. Right. So I need to work, and I need to have a plan B, which is solid and not something substandard in my head. So to decide to do that was also a very personal choice, but something I don't think I also in my head at least had an option. It was not an option for me कि चलो बैठ के exam दे देते हैं. वो नहीं, I don't think I'd have had the mental balance at all to be able to go through it without it. So that was very important. Having said that, once you know that, so then you know it's very important for you, then you also start drawing strength from it. Right. Because as you prepare for it, you know that this is not the be all end all of anything. If this happens, very good. If this doesn't happen, it's not that I'm on the streets. Right. So that, I think there are two ways of looking. One is कि अरे काम करना पड़ रहा है तो time नहीं है तो नौकरी करेंगे तो exam कैसे देंगे. The other is ठीक है नौकरी है, there is something stable, अब exam के लिए कैसे पढ़ें. उसमें strategy आती है, absolutely. उसमें सबसे ज़्यादा यही आता है that जो आपने कहा. For me, one was how to minimize effort in terms of time spent on collecting resources and going through new resources. So I limited all the resources that I was going to refer to in terms of books, in terms of newspapers. I was not reading 4 newspapers. मैं एक हिंदू पढ़ती थी, that's it. I was not reading multiple papers. I was not reading the magazines like you asked. But what I realized that when you have less time, the best thing to do is practice. I know I've said this multiple times, but if you come back in the evening and you are exhausted and you cannot for the life of you pick up a book on history and start reading the Mughal era, don't. Just do a test. Do a test. It will rejig your memory about everything you have done. जो नहीं आते उसके बाद जब अच्छा नहीं करोगे ना उसको तो अपने आप लगे चलो अभी थोड़ी 1 घंटा बैठ के देख लेते हैं because I have done terribly in this. So sometimes your own carrot and stick is what you figure out. So that is what I learned. कि carrot and stick works like this with yourself also. So of course weekends नहीं है and आपने work life बोला तो वो work life balance नहीं है वो भी work है ये भी work है. So there's no work life balance. There is no social life. Correct. It's just to work till you get through.
So adding on to that as well, एक ये है कि जब आप working भी हो and at the same time preparing for such a grueling exam, like can you run us through like a sample schedule of yours, like कितने घंटे आप निकालते थे. जैसे ये भी होता है कि कुछ लोग बोलते हैं 10 घंटे पढ़ना होता है, 8 घंटे पढ़ना होता है. Because honestly speaking, somebody who's preparing full time definitely has an edge over you because they have more hours at their disposal. So how did you manage, or can you give us like a sample schedule कि मैं probably इतना देर manage करती थी, how did you go about it?
First, I did not necessarily believe that people who were sitting home had an advantage over me, because I feel when your day expands, then the amount of time you take to do the same thing also expands.
Right.
So the paucity of time works in the reverse manner as well. So, and the other thing, I think there is a lot more uncertainty, and hats off to people who do it without it than someone who has some backup. So for me, I always knew that this is not easy, but this is the better bet for me.
Right.
So that didn't trouble me. Second part, on a schedule basis, in consulting or any profession, at least I can speak for consulting, you can't say you have a schedule. You can't say you have a 9 to 6 job.
Right.
You will go. You have a client call, you can't say, nahi boss, sorry, mujhe padhna hai abhi. Main apna prelims ka ek test de rahi hu. So that, having said that, the only thing I used to try and say that ki chahe the newspaper should not be missed. So whether it's on a commute, whether it's otherwise, that it cannot be कि हफ्ते का वो stack बन गया है कि अब एक दिन बैठ के, because you have to keep track of what's happening, because not just for prelims, or चलो prelims में नहीं आया, mains में, for general understanding of where you sit, even if you get to the interview, if you've actually missed beach ka 1 month or any amount of time, it will show, it will reflect at some point. So that is one, that your newspaper should not be missed. And for me, that was invariably a commute. I had a long commute. So newspaper, I used to watch a few videos if I had finished the paper. So commute was one place I used to work. Then invariably coming back, I used to try and put in as many, it was not about hours. I started working from like a goal of sorts. This is the amount of work I want to do by this date. I want to finish history. I want to finish geography in the next 5 days, next 4 days. That's how I worked. I never counted my hours कि आज 3 घंटा तो कल 5 घंटा. वो कर भी नहीं सकते थे. But yes, if I knew that Sunday is when my deadline for geography is, and I'm sitting on a Saturday night, and I still have the 12th Indian physical geography to go, then I know what I have to do for the next 1.5 day.
Right.
That's
so,
how
yeah. So, I mean, beautifully summed up, because thankfully for answering, thank you so much for answering that question, because flooded with questions, sir, working professional kaise prepare kare, bahut tough hota hai, ye hota hai. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you and a lot of learners who are going to watch this interview will learn a lot from this answer to yours. Moving on to interview, Pujya. How was the whole preparation for interview? But honestly thinking, I mean, considering your profile, you had a double edge. Like, honestly, you might have an advantage as well, but that can also sometimes backfire. So how did you go about preparation for your interview stage?
So, and I'm very glad you said, because not many people recognize that, sometimes when you think that there are people who say, Acha, you would have sailed through an interview. That's not true for anyone.
Right.
I mean, there is no stage of this exam anyone can sail through. ये बिल्कुल गलत notion है. इसको अपने सबको दिमाग से निकाल दीजिए. Everyone is at an equal footing. हाँ, कुछ different socio-economic advantages हो सकते हैं, but overall it's an equal footing exam. Having said that, जब मैं 16 में interview, so I had just come back from Colombia. अपना चलिए prelims भी हो गया, mains भी हो गया, तो you start feeling कि हाँ, ठीक है, कुछ तो आता ही होगा. Sometimes you also start believing things which are not true. But I was really scared for the interview for some reason. And that is what I think was my greatest folly when I was preparing in 16. I think पता नहीं कितने interviews किए, हर जगह जाके interview दिया, multiple जगह, रोज ये paper पढ़ लो, वो मतलब interview के लिए पढ़ाई की, छुट्टी लेके interview के लिए पढ़ाई की. And now in hindsight, I think ये क्यों किया? मतलब everywhere you go, every coaching tells you it's a personality test, it's not a test of your knowledge. कोई सुनते नहीं, at least मैंने first time round नहीं सुना. But the second time, having sat through it, it was not a good interview for me.
No.
So I think it was 100. I mean, if you see the numbers, it was decent. It was, I think, 176 or something like that.
It's a pretty decent mark.
It's a very decent score.
Yeah.
But when I walked out, I knew I'll not get through. So I had lost hope for that exam the day I walked out of the interview board. Ki ye nahi hoga. And then I looked at again when I was preparing in 18 and I got through, I told myself, I will believe it's a personality test, and I do believe in the personality that I have, and that I will go through it. I still read papers. I did not take leave for it. I did very few mocks just to get कि आजकल क्या सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं. That helps once in a while. So I think it's important कि आप 1-2 mocks देख लीजिए, because just the idea of a panel, just the idea of people asking you questions from anywhere under the sun, it's not a job interview. It's not like a job interview where you asked, this is your skill set, this is our ask, how do you match it? It's much beyond that. So I was a lot more calmer this time and a lot more, I would say, confident about my personality going in. And the interview process really is a game of confidence. And that is why I said initially that the paper nahi choda. The only thing, yes, you have to come across as an aware person. You cannot come across ki, haan, I've cracked the prelims, I've cracked the main. Tell me what to study, I'll come and deliver here. It's not that. They're just looking at how aware an individual you are and whether tomorrow when you start representing government at any stage, can you just be put in front of a group of people? Think of it like that. And that's how I told myself that have faith, go there and talk. And that honestly, then it's a conversation. It's not as scary. It's really a conversation between you and 5 senior members. It was a very different experience. And there was, I think, 193 is bar. There is a jump. It's not a massive jump. 100, 220. But it at least, I would say, when you're playing the mind game, which this exam is also, it helps you be on the right side.
I'm really glad that you brought this point that last time you were a little less confident. And especially in interview, I think that matters the most. I mean, ये बहुत बड़ा misconception है, I think aspirant में, that need to know everything in interview. I think sometimes it's it works if you're honest. If you can say to the board, I think, sir, I don't know, maybe there were a few questions with you as well which you were not able to answer, maybe. And how was the experience like? Like, were the board comfortable? Like, how was it like, the interview this time? And if you can also give us a little brief about what went wrong in the previous attempts, like, because this was your 4th attempt, so you can just quickly also brief us, like, what tip you'll give to the other aspirant probably who are trying to crack the exam in first attempt or let's say 2nd attempt. What would be a genuine advice?
So on the first part, that what went wrong there and what went right here, I think one was, as we've already discussed, the part of your confidence. So when I didn't know something, you can, if you have your own barometer going on, you've dipped. Right. And then there is also, you dip, then the ability to bring yourself back up.
Correct.
कि कोई ये नहीं आता, अगला आंसर दे दूंगी. जब वो कॉन्फिडेंस खुद में होता है तो वो अपने आप होता है. नहीं होता है तो लगता है अच्छा ये भी क्या, अब ये क्या पूछ लेंगे, फिर then you start preempting, अब ये क्या पूछेंगे जो नहीं आता, अब मैं क्या करूं कि जो ये भी नहीं आता. And अगर 2-3 questions line से हो गए कि नहीं आता, then I had a very difficult question on a mathematics problem, and I was told very upfront, you don't even know this. Now that was a stress interview. In consulting language, at least I know that would have been called a stress. It's just that there you're not expecting कि अच्छा probability का अगर question नहीं आता तो how this is going to be taken. In my second interview, I was like कि ठीक है आज ये भी पूछ ले मुझसे, I know how to respond to it. That was my difference in my own approach. जब आया ऐसा नहीं है, I didn't know everything. Of course, I don't think anyone knows everything when they walk into an interview. Right. And this time around, in fact, because I was working with Pricewaterhouse, I was asked something from the audit and the account side of it while I was in the consulting wing, and I didn't know. That actually does probably also reflect poorly, because you're just supposed to know. But I told myself, even in the interview, I said, koi baat nahi, I can't know the entire firm. It's one of the big fours. I can't know. Right. That battle that you fight with yourself while you're in the interview, that is where confidence plays more. It's एक होता है what the other person sees, एक is how you're pulling yourself back up. When I was asked 1, 2 or 3 questions लगातार, and I was like, sir, I'm not sure. And then I said that I probably was not able to answer, but I'm also in this vertical, which I'm happy to answer about. And then they let it be. Yeah. So it's okay. So confidence helps you more than it helps what people see.
Also, if you can think in the hindsight, what went wrong in the previous 3 attempts, like overall? And if you want to give an advice to a newbie or a fresher, कि देखो ये मैंने गलतियां करी, आप लोग शायद ये मत करना. And because you need a very high level of sustained motivation चाहिए to go through 4 attempts, and hats off to you for that. To Jen coming out with flying colors and getting rank 11. But a lot of people probably, they can't even afford itna saal tak preparation, who have financial constraints and a lot of things going on. So what would be the advice to a fresher from your end?
For someone starting out or someone in the process, one thing I really do believe is really have a backup plan. Wherever, whatever, whoever you are. It is very important. It will hold you in good stead. Even if, for example, you're not pursuing it immediately, at least have it structured in your head. कि ठीक है, ये नहीं हुआ, मैं 2 साल दूंगी, 3 साल दूंगी, 3 साल नहीं हुआ, I have this master's I'm planning, or this is what I'm wanting to do. have something planned for if not this. This can't be the only thing. And you cannot spend years at end without anything else, because it also is a rut that you get into. Then you can't come out of it suddenly feeling ki I'm unemployable, I have nothing nowhere to go, and I've wasted my youth.
Correct.
These are mental challenges and financial, physical, of all forms you don't want to go through.
Right.
Second, I would say that again, have a healthy approach to the exam. By that, what I mean is, when I was giving it in 16, it था कि बस ये करना है, मैं तो वापस इसलिए आई हूँ, this is what I want to do. There is a fine difference between wanting something and perhaps being desperate about something.
Correct.
They're two different things. And for that, one of the very good things, of course, is that you're happy in what you're doing, or you have a plan you would want to pursue. Second was really picking up a hobby. First time around, I didn't give that much time to it. I was really key. Office, padhai, and that's it. Baki sab, let go of everything else. This time around, for me, physical exercise was very important. I was putting out about 45 minutes to an hour, if need be, every day, because that is when I would think, and I would tell myself, theek hai, ek exam hai. That's for people, it can be meditation, for someone it can be dance, music, whatever. Find something that helps you de-link from both the rut of your work, if you're working or not working, just the exam.
Correct.
Have that. And third really is going to be, it's a long drawn process. It requires a lot of hard work. Know your reasons why you want to join it. Hopefully they're good. They're something you really believe in, not because everyone else is doing it. I did that probably in 13 myself, so I can speak for it. Ki chalo sab de rahe hain. वैसे नहीं होता ये एग्जाम, फ्लूक में किसी का नहीं होता, मेहनत बहुत लगती है एंड बहुत शिद्दत से होता है, तो उसको have your reasons right and work with that. So I would say these are the three things, and when you start actually getting down to it, practice whichever stage you are. Maybe not so much for the interview like I did in 16,
right?
Because keep your freshness alive. You should not start looking completely tutored. हाँ, tutored, किसको पता है हंसना, इसको कहा गया है पहले सोचो फिर जवाब दो. Right. You will be taught so much in an interview, mock interview, ki don't respond. If you have an instinct to respond. I was told you move your hands too much. I do it even today. I did it in 16. I was trying to sit holding my hands ki main nahi hilu, I will not, nothing should come. In 18, I talk like this. I like my hands moving. I'm going to gesticulate. So you have to just be yourself for the interview. For the first two, yes, practice, because there's no way around it.
A beautiful bit of advice there. Like, individuality matters, and I think one very crucial point you mentioned was develop a hobby. One thing a lot of aspirants totally forget is you need to break this monotony. Din bhar pad rahe hain, isolation mein hai, don't even know what is going around. And I think even the dynamics of the examination change ho gaya hai. They are now also looking and making those kind of questions where they're looking, I think, for ki aap kitne aware ho of your surroundings other than just the books. So last bit of question, few questions for you, Pujya. How important is the role of a peer group during preparation, like friends, maybe because either they are preparing or even if they are not preparing, and of course family? Like, how important was the role of them in your life, friends and family?
I would say both have played a very important role in terms of a support system for me, but I'm not someone who's ever been part of group study. So when you ask me about a peer circle for padhai, I didn't have one. I was quite a lone ranger, so to speak, where that is concerned. And I consciously did do that as well. Like, when we all do end up going to ORN at some point in time. But the conversations I heard, I realized that this is either I'm going to get really hooked on to this. There is this entire, brigade that you see that really is, अच्छा इस साल ये हुआ, जो सिर्फ analysis में चले जाते हैं when you get into groups. कि ये हुआ तो अभी you either preempting the exam or analyzing what happened the last time around. I didn't want to do that. I think जो है यही attempt है, इसको देना है, ना पीछे का सोचना है ना आगे का सोचना है, उसको ढंग से. Second, I work better alone. I don't study with music or with people. I have a small hole in the room, which is where I go to when I have to study. So that, for those two reasons. And then for me, that's why my friends became very important. I used to take breaks. ठीक है, बहुत हो गया, हफ्ते भर से 2 हफ्ते हो गए, कुछ और नहीं. Just go out, meet people. And there, I didn't want to meet people who discuss the exam with me. I would meet people when my friends were people who didn't have anything to do with the exam.
I need a break from this.
they'll talk the world to me, which is so important. Just keep fresh perspective. और क्या चल रहा है? You know, that true break happened. And similarly, like, of course, my mother was very involved in my process. So she knew कि अच्छा आजकल ये पढ़ रही है या ये कर रही है. But to their credit also, like dining table or any time, this is not the conversation कि तुम्हारी पढ़ाई कैसी चल रही है. There were taboo questions कि ये सब नहीं. So I have had a very solid support system, which really helped me. But I did not do this. I did not have really a group study perspective to the exam.
And आजकल it's very common to have chai pe charcha even on family and with friends, and you go on talking about the exam, and that adds on to the pressure, I think.
Exactly. And
also when you have like such a illustrious family with diplomats in the family or on, it's like, I think does it add to the pressure? Like, I want to just ask.
No, so there is you cannot deny that there is always an assumption कि अच्छा आप दे रहे हो तो आपका हो जाएगा, which is not true.
Right.
Which is not true at all.
Yeah.
But and that is how much pressure you want to take it as. Otherwise, ठीक है, देखते हैं होता है तो अच्छी बात है, आपको बता देंगे, is how you respond to it, or you live with it. Right. But but consciously, yes, that break is very important. उसी एक चीज की, that's what I said, can't be a be all and all. Right. And then that adds to the idea of desperation कि भाई ये नहीं हुआ तो क्या करेंगे, सब कुछ ना कुछ हो जाता है life में. Life is much larger than one exam.
So Pujya, since you mentioned that this was your fourth attempt, how was it really going through, repeated failures? I would not say failures, technically speaking, but yes, disappointments. How difficult it was to pull back yourself, from this disappointment. And kabhi ye thought aaya man mein ki yaar ab bas ho gaya, 2 attempt ho gaya, 3 attempt ho gaya, ab nahi dungi. Like, was there any moment like this? Because this is some, one thing that I think a lot of people are looking forward to, क्योंकि वो भी शायद ये चीज से गुजर रहे हैं. And I think you can give a better insight to that question.
I mean, absolutely, Dipanshu. Failure tha. Why not? Let's call it what it is. Let's call an ace wali baat hai. It was. And whether it's 13, when you don't qualify, if you don't qualify, then you can pretty much call it failure. And for me, 16 really did hit me hard. And I mean, I think I said this earlier also. Getting 17, so I was just in too much shock to even, it's just probably a bad idea in my head, given the way I was mentally at that point of time, to even give the prelims. But ठीक है, जो किया सो किया, सबसे सीखता है. इसमें बहुत मतलब, I'm someone who actually has tried to learn from this process to pick yourself up, because academically हमेशा ये रहा है कि नहीं अच्छा करना है, चाहे 10th का बोर्ड हो, 12th का हो, या पे सर जाओ. So somewhere you start feeling कि ठीक है, मैं मेहनत करती हूँ तो उसका result comes out in the way I want it, favorable. In this exam, सब मेहनत करते हैं, but it's not always favorable. So that is the biggest learning here. That is why it's 50% hard work, 50% luck. So always remember that. So in this, if you are attributing failure, it's not just because of your probably less hard, that you've not worked hard enough, but it's also probably the luck was not in your favor. So this failure is different than a more linear exam that might be. So always remember that. I think I also really did learn from it the hard way. I will not deny. It was a difficult period. But इसमें जब आपने जो second question पूछा कि at one point you giving up का idea, इसमें giving up का idea, I was not कि अब मैं नहीं दूंगी. Even after 17, I think 2 महीना के लिए रहा होगा कि prelims के बाद कि अब नहीं देना, this is it, I'm done, I'll follow. But there was a lingering thought कि नहीं यार, एक बार तो और देना चाहिए. But this time around when I prepared in 18, it was for the first time I prepared that this is going to be my last attempt, irrespective of what it is. Simply because you at some point you have to tell yourself कि अब boss ये मुझसे हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, do I need to move on? Right. That call, what attempt, what age, whatever is your criteria, that you need to set and say that this is it. Just because you have 6 or whatever, that doesn't mean you have to give them all. It's not a give, God sent thing कि सब attempt देना है, देते रहना है. हाँ, नहीं देते रहना है. वो आपको call दिए कि ठीक है. So I had taken this call. So even after the mains, I gave away all my NCRTs and everything because I didn't want to keep anything. I didn't want that thought to ever come back. I was like, now I have given so much of my life to it, almost 3 years. Seriously, 3 years after 16. कि अब ये नहीं, this is not how I want to live. I will move on. So that I would say my thought was not give up, but acceptance कि this is going to be the last. Let's take it like that.
That's it.
That I did.
I think, and that eventually that paid off. That determination in the end that this is going to be my last, because otherwise you become a little more lenient कि अभी तो एक और attempt है, देख लेंगे.
हाँ, और उसमें फिर मतलब but mean it, not कि अच्छा ऐसे दूंगी कि last है पर you also know कि ऐसा नहीं है.
Right.
वो भी गलत है. Because I did give away after mains, irrespective. I told myself, irrespective of the mains result of this, कि अब नहीं देना. Just give away.
So Pujya, let's get to know you a little better. We have a few questions over here. So we have so-called a rapid fire round. So I'm going to quickly ask you 5 questions and you have to answer them as quickly as possible. Okay?
Ready? Right. Go. Shoot.
Okay. So first question, what are you most excited about these days?
My posting to Paris.
Posting to Paris, okay, good one. Tea or coffee?
Tea. Chai.
Chai. Okay, and did you pick up any recent hobby during quarantine days?
Cooking, not a hobby, survival, going abroad.
Okay. And one talent you wish you had?
Music.
Music. So thank you, Pujya, for the rapid fire round. We definitely got to know you a little more better, and you answered it beautifully, though evading one question. And thank you so much for taking our time for this session. And I'm pretty sure that काफी लोगों को ये useful मिलेगा and लगेगा भी. And I wish you all the best from my side and from the entire team of Unacademy and the Chamomile Tea. All the best for your future endeavors. Thank you so much, Pujya.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
चल उठ जा, let's crack it, जोर दे लगा